I'm Matt Gray, and I'm joined weekly by Dr. J. We're both certified financial planners, and we talk about how child-free life impacts your finances. This is Child-Free Life and Money.
Matt Gray here for episode 4 of Child-Free Life and Money, joined, as always, Dr. J. Thanks for attending and contributing today as we go through our episode 4 topic, which is alternative retirement, basically of any type. I think on our last episode, we talked a little bit about how retirement is a word that has lost its definition as time has changed over the last couple of decades here, and more people, particularly child-free people, don't do the standard retire on their porch in a rocking chair. It's very different now. And what does that mean, particularly for child-free people who have all kinds of options? But what are some of those options? What are some of the opportunities there, the hurdles, so on and so forth? So today, let's dive into that topic with, let's first define what retirement used to be, maybe, and then what it more likely resembles now, or maybe some trends that you've seen from clients that you work with as to what they want out of retirement. So both of those things, old school retirement, more modern retirement, what are we looking at?
Really, it's got to be about old people or just old school?
Old school retirement, okay. Yeah. No. When we talk old people, we talk about you, Dr. J. That's what we're referring to.
I can think like 4 years or something. Anyway, so the old kind of thought of retirement, the way I look at it is a light switch, on off work. You know, and really one of the things with retirement, I often ask is, are you retiring from something or to something?
That's a great question.
Old school was, I want to retire from. I've worked 25 years. I get the watch. I get my pension. I'm out. That's gone.
Right.
Okay. And realistically, if you don't have something to do in retirement, Netflix gets boring after about a month. It's just, you run out of shows.
Yeah, you watch all of Netflix. I've done it before. I've seen it all.
Yeah, I mean, and then you switch to Hulu, but you got one more month and you're done with that.
Right.
So that old school retirement is probably gone. And I think part of that is because there was this belief you just had to we're going back to life script. You go to school, you get married, you go to work, you work at the factory for 25 years and you retire. That was it. Well, now people are changing jobs every 2-3 years. So there's no loyalty to the place. There's no more pensions, none of that. And it's not really that the goal is retirement. When I'm looking at child-free folks, I found that a lot of them say, I don't want to retire. Enough so that I coined a term I call FILE, financial independence, live early, as opposed to FIRE, which is financial independence, retire early. It's kind of like a dimmer switch for work. It reflects doing the work you want to do when you want to do it. And it might be that I want to work part-time for a while or start a business or who knows, but it's a different picture than just, I'm going to work 25 years, quit, done, never work again. And it's just a different way of looking at the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really brilliant observation of the retiring from, and now it's more of a retiring to. And I think that encompasses the idea that so many clients that admittedly we both talk to, that they'll even tell us, you know what it is, I don't actually want to ever fully retire, is what I often hear. But if you read between the lines there, it's, I would like to control my time more, but still do something that I enjoy, which is often what that is. And that's exactly what you're mentioning when you say, financial independence, live early. I want to still do the work that I enjoy, but on my own damn time, as I please, as I see fit. So yeah, I think absolutely it used to be retire from. I did my time. I did my 25, 30 years making widgets. I retired now. What are you going to do? I don't know, go on a couple of trips, play some golf, blah, blah, blah. But that's the old school, as I said, old school retirement, which is, and to be fair, some people still want to do that, which is great. We can still plan for that, but I think fewer and fewer people want to retire in that old sense. And now, go ahead.
And Matt, I had somebody that I interviewed that great example is living the FIRE life. He calls his life successful laziness. So how little work I need to do to get it done. Right. He's going to be in mid 40s. He's going to retire. He's got his house paid off. and he's going to spend his entire time playing video games and D&D and gaming. That's just what he's going to do. His only worry is that his friends aren't going to be around because they're busy working. So he may not have, for the gaming, but he truly is going to just done. And I kind of jealous of him because that's really nice if you could do that, but I can't do that because I'm always going to want to do something. Like there's a drive in me that I don't know, whether it's a Protestant work ethic or whatever, middle class work. I don't know. I'm always driven to do something. Even when I have time off, I'm still doing something. And that's probably a psychosis that I could get fixed at some point. But, there are people that want to do that. And that's the FIRE movement. And that's cool. But that's a rarity. Like that's an outlier.
Right.
Versus I want to do something with my time differently.
Right. Correct. Yeah. And so I think that's really a great segue into, well, how do you get more control of your time to do what you would like rather than sit at a desk from 9 to 5? Unless, you're one of those weird people who just wants to sit at a desk from 9 to 5, whether you're working or not, whatever. But I think, all right, well, how then do we do that? What does that often look like? And is there a roadmap for that? Or is it complete, what we'd call open architecture? You can just design it block by block yourself as to whatever your life to look like. And I think, well, we'll get into some of that. But with that question, what does that often look like, taking control of your time again?
Yeah, I think the first thing you have to do is get rid of magic numbers. So like people have these magic numbers. I'm going to retire at 50. I'm going to retire with 4 million. Like these magic numbers, like those are going to change your life.
Right.
And then you hit it and you're like, now what?
Right.
So it takes a different way of looking at the world. And when I work with child-free couples, one of the things that I encourage is actually what I call the gardener and the rose approach, where one person is the rose and growing, and one is the gardener providing support, where we can take these turns.
Right.
Realistically, most child-free couples could live on one income.
Right.
Just as long as you manage your money well. So that means, okay, great. If, right now, for example, in my life, my wife, we just moved 1,200 miles for her job. I'm providing the support. I'm in the gardener role. She's in the rose. She's growing. Everything's to support her career and her job. At some point, we're then going to switch. We have it scheduled for 15 years. And when I become the rose, we're going to get on a boat and travel the world. It's just kind of different tasks.
Great.
But what happens is if you have that thought process, you'll realize somebody needs to lead and somebody needs to support, but you can actually do that growth now versus waiting to a magic number.
Right.
And go, well, but it's going to slow down my retirement savings. So what? Do you want to be miserable for 20 more years, or do you want to go open your dream cupcake shop now?
Right. Exactly. And I think there's more flexibility to do that as a child-free person, couple, group, et cetera, because this is what I thought when I started my own firm, right? I go, okay, say I fail miserably, never get a client, I don't make a dime doing it. What happens to me? I'm out 50 grand and I go get a job. I guess that's the worst it is. So there's definitely more opportunity to say, what are you afraid of? The downside is a lot less catastrophic when you're child free. It's not like you've got other people necessarily. Maybe some do, but not all people have someone depending on them when they're child free. So you can go and say, I'm starting my cupcake shop, to hell with it. I'm going now. And there are a lot of mental hurdles to break out of the life script, right? Of wait, I can do this, and then make that adjustment. So with those adjustments, living early or living now as your file lifestyle is, when someone does break through that, now they're ready to live their alternative lifestyle, and we won't even call it retirement from here on out. We'll call it file. When they're ready to start living that way, there's all kinds of things that could look like, but now what? And what does that mean for the long run of their financial plan? What are some things to consider there?
Yeah. So by the way, the hardest part of this is determining what you want your life to look like. That's probably a whole other topic. We need to how to plan your life as a child-free person. That's a bigger topic. Let's talk on the financial side. So my first thing is, how do we protect you enough that you can take chances? Right. So, in our last session, we had some debates on debt, and I go, get rid of the debt and you got no expenses. If you pay off your house, your expenses are nothing, or very little. Then the other question is, that's now, how do we protect the end? So, okay, long-term care, Social Security, maybe a little money for cushion.
Right.
If I have those two bookends done, who cares?
Right.
You know,
Right.
you know,
Right.
like if my money goes away, I'm still safe because I still have my bills paid and I have enough to take care of me in my elder years. I can
I
take
can take the risk.
chances.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, if I want to go buy something, I want to start a business. And here's the challenge. The challenge is investing in what will change your life. So I wrote it this way: is it's kind of Marie Kondoing your life. This is what brings you joy.
Yeah. I
You
love
know,
that.
and there's a lot of things you'll throw out of your life pretty quick when you
Right.
realize what brings you joy versus not. By the way, ignore those friends that don't bring you joy. You know, they might just like
Yeah.
friends or family. I don't know which side they're going.
Yeah. We'll set this one aside for second review later.
Yeah, but it's about creating that, and then you can make the finances work with it. Now,
Right.
you're right. You're not going to have a large legacy at the end. You're not giving away millions at the end, and you're not going to have a large retirement fund.
Right.
But you can live that life.
Right.
And my thing is, you know, I'm 44. So what do I want to do in the next 40, 50 years? And it isn't, I want to grind so that I can have a couple good years at the end.
Right. Yeah. It sounds terrible. And I think that's really what's driving this movement of more and more people saying like, screw the normal, like old school retirement of like, there's this old adage of there are three things we have in life: time, money, and energy. And when you're young, you have time and energy, but no money. In the middle of your life, you have money and energy, but no time. And at the end of your life, you've got money and time, but no energy. Why does it have to be like that? Like in the middle of your life, you can say, I'll have a moderate amount of all of them. I'll please, thank you very much. And you can go live this great life without having to think, oh, great, well, at the end of my life, what I can look forward to is, you know, being old without energy, not traveling, not doing whatever else it is you want to do, opening your cupcake shop because now you've got a bunch of time and money, but you got no energy, blah, blah, blah. We can do that now. Like, let's do that now. And let's like work to make that happen now. So for instance, I've seen a number of these different types of, I don't know, again, just like file circumstances play out. So for one, I have a client who he's a therapist and is able to build his calendar how he likes it, and is able to go out and kayak a bunch out here in Colorado and go on trips and all this. And he specifically is sacrificing making more money, where he could make well into the six figures, but has decided not to. And that's kind of sacrificing some of the money for time now. And he's building time to take multiple months off every summer to go on big kayak trips. He's only making like 85,000 when he could have made like 150,000 if he spent more time working. That's like a very simple version of what it looks like. But there are people who work, and for that specific client, I built something where I said, okay, well, what if you still work your 25-hour weeks, and then every third year you take a year off or something completely? Or, you know, and they already kind of went and started their business. So that was their self-employed therapist. So that's a whole scenario in which someone did say, I'm going to start building the life I want. And we're working on getting him there and making that happen. So have there been any really, I mean, you've written a book, Portraits of Child-Free Wealth. It really examined quite a few lives of people who are child-free and have made that conscious decision. Have you found anything unique with people starting to find that file lifestyle, or things that are kind of common threads maybe?
Yeah. And by the way, before we get hate mail, the fire community will go, well, that's slow FI or that's barista FI. Okay, fine. We can fight over which term you want to call it. But the bottom line is shifting your life. And let me give you an example of this. There's a couple who actually is out your way in Colorado, decided to live in an RV. She works in healthcare, and he created his own indie video game system.
Right.
Like
he's
designing video. I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, and like he's got this balance where like he's balancing how many hours he's working out, how many hours he's working, how many, and it's phenomenal. And they want to hopefully, have her transition too. And by the way, video game might make a lot of money, might not. That's okay.
Right.
And actually the video game he's creating is about kind of the question of life. What do you do with life? I'm like, well, then that's a little, I don't know. It's Inception here, dreaming living a dream, like, okay,
meta,
cool,
yeah.
dude. And it's so common that I gave it a different name because I want just to point people in the direction, because my argument is you're not retiring, you know? So using the word retirement sets you at the wrong, you're pointing in the wrong direction.
Right.
I mean, reality is I don't know if this game's going to work. And by the way, I couldn't live in an RV, but that's okay.
Right.
It works for them.
Right.
And they're having a phenomenal life.
Right.
You know, could he make more money doing some other stuff? Sure. Would he be happier? Not a chance.
Right. Yeah. And what's all of it for anyway? At the end of the day, I tell people all the time, what is more important than the pursuit of happiness? Like, would you rather be rich than happy? That seems like an interesting trade-off. Like, the pursuit of getting money is theoretically to bolster your happiness, right? So if they're living in an RV and she's working in healthcare and he's designing his video game, and they're happy and happier than they would be in other circumstances, why would they not do that? Like, that's the ultimate thing that you're trying to achieve in life. And so that's so cool that they've been able to do that. And I think it's just one simple example of something that people are able to accomplish.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I'm hearing a lot from people, especially in couples, is that somebody needs to take a sabbatical. You know, take 6 or 12 months off and find themselves.
Right.
I've even created a structure for people where the first 2 months sabbatical is just like vegging out. That's when you're allowed to watch Netflix. The next 2 months are figuring out what you want to do with your life. Right. And then the next 2 months are, how do I get those skills? You know, so it's a purposeful time where I take 6, 12 months, whatever it is, off and find myself. Right. The truth is, we've all been on the gerbil wheel for so long that we need just time to stop. Right. And that's more than like a weekend, like, you know, like legit time. And then going, okay, you know, if you want to do that cupcake shop I mentioned, well, maybe I go work for a bakery for 6 months just to get some skills, you know, or whatever it is. And it's funny. In a couple, the spouse will usually know the other one needs a break. Right. You know, they're getting burnt out or whatever. Right. They're not necessarily going to want to. And I'm like, you're fine. The finances, you're fine. You've got emergency fund. You're safe. You're good. And they're like, well, what if a 6 month sabbatical becomes a year? You're still fine financially.
Yeah, right.
But you can find yourself. Right. And people go, well, but, you know, I hear this, but I've never seen anyone else do that. Yeah, sure. Then you haven't. Like, you know, that's a bonus of being child free. Right. You can do that and then find who you are and then restart. Right. You know, take turns and grow. And people go, well, but, you know, I've got this money I'm not going to be putting away. Yeah, you're right. What you're doing instead is putting the money into you. Right. You're banking happiness. Yeah. Yeah. You're investing in yourself. Right. Which is, again, I think we're so conditioned to think like, well, I have to squirrel money away because later it will support me. So I'll suffer through the next 20 years so that then I can find relief from all of this in 20 years, as opposed to, I don't need all this money. And again, it's not exclusive of money. You can still make a great living not working a 9 to 5, which again, we're not anti 9 to 5, but you can build your own life however you want it and still do fine financially. But if you're looking at for the happiness aspect, investing in yourself, doing something that's fulfilling where you don't have to suffer through for 20 years, that's going to lead to theoretically a better life. And that's kind of what the objective is already. So I think it's huge to see people doing that, starting to realize that. And it's almost this beautiful thing to me when someone goes, I've never seen someone do this before. Yeah, exactly. You've designed this. No one else has. Like, this is your custom life. You've done what everyone hopes to do. And that's super powerful. And Matt, I think the other one is, I've had people where, and I'm sure you've had the same, I look at their numbers and I'm like, when do you want to retire? And they go, well, I want to retire at whatever age. I go, you know, you could probably do it next week if you want it. Right. And they're like, what? And this is usually when I have the discussion with them. You're a millionaire. You don't realize it. Like, you know, they haven't done the math of it. I'm like, you're not spending anything. You got no debt. Right. Whenever you want to change, you can. Right. And it usually takes, I've been tracking about 6 months before they'll actually make the change. Right. Because they're like, no, I see the numbers. I'm not sure I believe you yet. Like, and I'm like, the numbers are here. This is what lying. I do. Yeah. I'm like, I'll do the math out for some of the expenses. I'm like, if you never even invested your money in, we run it out, you'll be fine for 40 years before you even have to touch your money. And they're like, what? I'm like, you're good. What do you want to do with your life? Right. They're like, well, I hate my job. I'm like, quit. Yeah. Stop doing it then. Yeah. And they're like, well, but my work needs me. Here's what you need to remember about your work. If you die, they will post your job tomorrow. Right. That's it. Yeah. You're employee number 327, and now they're looking for employee 328. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if your work brings you joy, cool, keep doing it.
Correct.
You know,
Right.
that's absolutely. I'm not saying don't work. I'm just saying, what do you want to do? Like, the best job I ever had is kind of one of those phones. This is in high school, just coming out of high school. I was a person for a florist.
Okay.
And the fun of that is whenever you're delivering flowers, people are happy. Even if you're delivering to a funeral, it's because like you thought of your family member or weddings, and you're just out in your truck and you're delivering flower. It was a great job. Paid like nothing, but it was a great job.
Right.
That's the type of job that I could do and be happy with.
Right.
So all right. So here's my question I give people, and I do this to classes. If you could do any job in the world, what would you do? And I've heard all different weird answers. Matt, what's yours? If you could do anything, don't worry about the money. What would you do?
I don't have to be qualified for it?
Nope.
All right. I would be a golf pro at a local golf course, probably.
Cool.
Just teach golf to people and do that basically all day.
And by the way, I heard all different answers. Some of my favorite, I want to be the bartender to swim up bar. That sounds like a fun one.
That's a cool
want to run an ice cream shop, like golf pro. Okay, cool. So now the question is, Matt, why don't you do it?
I don't have the skills to do it. I'm not.
But couldn't you learn those?
No. I mean, it's just like saying, do you think you can get to the NBA? I think my time has passed probably on that one.
I'd challenge you on that. But here's the thing. When I ask people in a class, why don't you do it? I usually get kind of the nervous laugh of, and you're like,
right.
So some financial, they're putting a barrier in their way.
Right.
And the truth is, if you wanted to learn the skills and be a golf pro, you probably could. May not be the best, but you could be a golf pro.
Maybe so. Yeah.
All right. For me, I'd actually be a boat captain, think like below deck, Captain Lee, driving the Yappo. I can't do that right now because we're living nowhere near the water, but 15 years from now, we're going to do that. But my point is, it's an exercise of what would you do?
Right.
And the answer is never what they're doing now. Like, okay, I've had like one person like, I love my job. Yeah. Okay, sure.
Right.
It's like, I want to be an astronaut. I want to, cool, go do it.
Right.
And that's where they're like, well, but I can't. Oh, no, you can. It's a question. Do you want to put the time, effort into it? If you really want to be a golf pro, if you worked at it nonstop, you'd get there. Now there's financial concerns and all the other things you got to do, but you could get there.
Right. So that's a fair point. And this is one thing I bring up all the time, where when we were all kids, everyone would always tell us, and I guess this is probably a generational thing, but you could be anything that you want is what we were always told. But this is the thing that I always say. They always left off the second half of that statement, which is, but you have to be willing to give up everything else. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's where a lot of people, they don't know how to answer it, but they'll say, I would want to be a bartender to swim a bar, but I don't want to make the sacrifices necessary to do that for whatever reason. Maybe they don't have that much of an aspiration for it, but it sounds like the most fun job they could get. But yeah, I for whatever reason, I think a lot of times there are, and maybe it is what you mentioned, just building these mental blocks to prevent us from having to take a chance. But I think there is this aspect of how much do you want it? Because you can do anything you want, but you have to be ready to make sacrifices elsewhere. And admittedly, when it comes to the financial planning aspect of retiring whenever you want, there's also that aspect for a lot of people of like, oh, I want to step away from work when I'm 35. Okay. You're probably not going to drive a Lamborghini. You're going to drive a Toyota, probably.
Yeah, it's a quality of life thing. And in the fire world, they go from fat fire to, lean fire. And lean fire, like you're eating ramen noodles, and fat fire, you have a private chef. There's a big range in there. I actually believe, Matt, that most adults never picked their life. Agreed. So you were told to go to school, go to this, go to that, and their job goes the same way. We don't actually pick our careers in many cases. We just follow wherever that opportunity opens a door.
Right.
So what happens is we go to school, our parents say, go to school for blah. Then we end up in that job. Then we get a promotion in that job. And like 10 years later, we're like, how the heck did we get here?
Right.
And what it was, we didn't actually make the choices.
Right.
To go back to your example, there's a book called Orbiting the Giant Hairball. Gordon McKenzie, he looks at creativity. He was in charge of creativity at Hallmark. He says, look, if you ask a kindergarten class, how many of your artists, everybody raise their hand.
Right.
By first grade, it's half. By second grade, it's 2 or 3 people. And by fifth grade, it's 1. Because we bred the creativity and the artistic, and, oh, you gotta have a real job. You gotta.
Right.
No, you don't.
Right.
Like, you're an adult. You can make a different choice.
Right.
And here's the thing. Even if that job pays less, if you're happier, go do it. Because you know what you can do? You can sell the house you're in, move somewhere smaller, lower your expenses, and have a better life.
Right. Right. You can do all that stuff. Yeah. And I think that manifests in a lot of ways, whether it is fully quitting your job and going to pursue whatever you're, to be a bartender to swim a pool bar thing. Like, great, go do that. Have fun. You're going to love it. But also there are different ways of achieving these pursuits. So admittedly, I'm someone who has very deep interests for a short period of time. I become like obsessed for a short period of time. And I've done it with chess. I've done it with bread making. I've done it with a number of different things where I just get obsessed and then I learn enough of it. And then I'm like, all right, next thing. I think for me, like, I wouldn't want to step away to do something forever, but I would love personally in my life to do things where it's like, oh, Matt took 6 months off to do a semester at an art school to learn how to do pottery making. And now he throws pottery and that's what he does in his free time as a hobby or something. It's like, wow, that's pretty cool. But you have to match it to what, like, each person has to match it to themselves. What do they want? What do they want their lives to look like? And I think some people would do very well with quit the job, go find your other job that you're going to like better, downsize your house, reduce your expenses, and live a happier life. Other people may want, to your point, I need that sabbatical every other year or something like that. So they design to have a sabbatical and they spend accordingly to save up for that every year or whatever it is. And they go and schedule these mini retirements throughout their entire career, whatever that is.
Well, and I think it depends on your goals. Okay. So, all right, me and my wife, we do well. I could retire now and not work. We could, she makes salary, I could do okay. But then I wouldn't be able to have some of the goals I want. So, by the way, I do this job because I enjoy it, but I also do it because I want to make some money. Let's be real. All right.
That's why we do it.
And my goal 15 years from now is to buy a big old boat and travel the world, circumnavigate the world. I mean, we're looking at a, $1.5 to $2 million boat. I got to do a lot of financial planning to earn that money, but that's what keeps me going. Okay. Right. That's my file life. I go, okay, 15 years from now, cool. I'm done. I'm going to go do that. By the way, I'm doing boating because it's a lot of stuff to do. There's always on to fix and go. And there's always something happening there. That fits me. Doesn't mean it fits anyone else. It's about following that passion, whatever it is. If your money is not getting you towards your passion, you're making a mistake somewhere.
Agreed. I think
you're just adding zeros to an account that's like fake.
Yeah, it's not going to help you at all. It's not going to bring happiness. And it's kind of like that marginal dollar spent on a lot of things doesn't actually bring much more happiness once you've done it. That's so yeah, you're building money for the sake of nothing, as opposed to building a life to enjoy. It's almost like, all right, so building money for the sake of having money is like running on the treadmill of life, of like, you're never going to reach your destination. You're always going to want more. And then you're going to get there and go, that's why you have so many people who regret, they go, I shouldn't have worked so much. Well, yeah, because your money didn't actually serve you how you thought it was going to. It didn't bring you happiness. You sacrificed for so long, all the way up until the end. You never actually took advantage of what you wanted to do. And so I love the aspect of living early. And really working towards that.
And Matt, one of the exercises I do with my clients, and I'm sure you've done something similar, I'll run their money out till age 90 or whenever we think their end of their plan is going to be, and go, okay, cool. At 90, you're donating $100 million because you don't care who goes to.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you okay with that?
Right.
And most of them go, no, I want to spend it.
Right.
Well, then change something now.
Right.
Because otherwise you're giving $100 million. And by the way, you might be giving it to dog rescue and you're happy about it, or your niece and nephew. Well, I don't care.
Right.
But that's not what gets people up in the morning. You're not like, I'm going to work so that I get the library named after me. If that is your goal, cool.
Right.
But for most people, it's like, if I die with even $5 million, I might have screwed up somewhere, because I could have spent that on something in my life that would bring me joy, or I could have not worked, or I could have,
whatever, name it.
Go back to school. I could have, I don't care. Travel, whatever it is.
Right. I know the exact phenomenon you're talking about. So I just wrote a plan and finalized this plan for one of my clients, late 20s, works in tech. I won't say they won the tech lottery like some people IPO and make $50 million, but in that same lane, if you will. So they're doing quite well, and they spend almost nothing because in their free time, they do like Twitch video gaming, right? So they live quite modestly. They spend most of their time outside of work gaming. They don't live an extravagant lifestyle. They rent and all this kind of stuff. I ran the plan, and because they're late 20s and they don't really know what they want, I said, if you work until you're 65, you will basically have the maximum allowable spending per year of something like 6 times what you're currently spending. You could triple your spending right now and still retire at 45 or something, 42, whatever it is. That's only 15 years away, 20 years away. It's one of those things where it gets almost so comical that we've been ingrained in these ideas of I got to work until I'm 65. When you look at the numbers of someone and you go, you could retire today easily, and you're not even 30 yet. Yeah. That's even factoring in all these other expenses that come with retiring early.
And then Matt, they go, well, but my healthcare costs because of retirement. I'm like, dude, that's $12,000 a year. Okay, you can pay for that out of pocket. You're good.
Right? Yeah, you're gonna be fine. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. You'll only die with 32 million, not 34 million, or whatever it is. You're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I think there's definitely this aspect in this. I think it's one of my favorite parts of the job is running someone's plan based on what they've kind of talked to me about, and this is what they envision. I run the plan and I go, that's too easy of a plan. Like, you don't need a plan for that. Let's build something that needs a plan that maximizes your life. And I think so many people, again, it's in what I think one of our past podcasts, we kind of talked about getting permission for something. There's like a subconscious, you need a permission. And when you kind of look at the numbers, sometimes you go, you're going to have millions of dollars if you do this. Why don't we do something that makes your life better with those millions of dollars instead of getting your name on your alma mater library? It's going to be much better for you, believe me.
It's always the people that aren't spending money that are like, oh, well, but I want to buy a car. It's $50,000. I'm like, dude, buy it.
Buy
Pay cash.
Yeah. Like, yeah, buy 3 of them. You're going to be fine. I'll kind of leave one last thought of this couple I worked with before. Maybe we kind of wrap this one out. I would definitely in the future like to explore maybe some cases. So if anyone here has a specific story of them doing a non-traditional retirement or leaving a 9-to-5 to open a brewery or something like that, email us, childfreepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to talk to you, potentially have you on the podcast and learn more about your story and what that looked like. But I had these clients, they were both Lockheed Martin engineers, and they worked at a period where they both got pensions. They both had pensions of something like $85,000 a year. So their combined pension pre-tax was 170, post-tax was whatever, 125, whatever it was. They were spending about $85,000 a year. They were flying all over the world in coach for like 22-hour flights and stuff like that, where they didn't even get to like recline their chair, basically. They were limiting themselves to 1 Starbucks per week. Now, this pension that they had was on top of $6 million of portfolio savings throughout their career because they've been frugal their entire lives. They worked all the way until they were 62 or something like that. It was the most ridiculous conversations I've ever had around financial planning, getting them to try to even spend money. I'm like, you could, if Starbucks franchised, you could just buy a fucking Starbucks. Like, you could just go and get one, not just one drink, a whole store, all of it. And I think that's one that I consistently come back to and feel like, especially for the fee they were paying the firm I worked for at the time, that we failed them completely because they had multiple kids and they had grandkids. They didn't even care where their money went when they passed away. They had the mindset, which a lot of people have, I'll be dead, what do I care? And it just blew my mind that someone lived their lives according to such strict rules the entire time in order to have gross excess to the point of what they wouldn't even enjoy it. So they sacrificed for nothing, basically. So that's what we're helping avoid. And I think what child-free people maybe should even consider that a risk, is sacrificing their life for something that's not necessary or not even needed when they could be doing something better. So yeah, wow, that's a topic we could dig into all day. Someday we'll probably get into the technical aspects of it too, of like things to consider when you do. leave your job or whatever. But for now, we'll leave it there. As always, let us know if you've got any comments, topics you want to hear, anything like that. Again, childfreepodcast@gmail.com. Go ahead and email us there with anything, and any kind of compelling stories along with non-traditional retirements. Again, we'd love to hear from you. Dr. J, any final thoughts? Anything else we should bring up before we get out of here?
Live the life you want to live. You don't have to live anyone else's. If you want to collect zeros in your bank account and that's what makes you happy, go right ahead. We're not saying you shouldn't, but
that's true.
Just think about it. Is that really making you happy? I mean, do you want to like Scrooge McDuck through the coins or something? I don't know. If that's what you want to do, that's your choice.
Right. That's fair. And it is admittedly coming from two gents who did start their own firms to basically try to do the same thing, try to go out there and find our own happiness in doing what we wanted to do. So we're kind of living it at the moment, and I certainly endorse it and encourage those types of things if you're child free, and really if you're not, talk to a financial planner. All right, well, good chatting with you, Dr. J. We'll be in touch for next time, a week from now. Talk to you then.
Child-Free Life and Money is an educational and entertainment podcast only. For further disclosure, look at our websites at www.anthrophywealth.com or www.childfreewealth.com. Either way, consult with your financial planner to see if anything we discuss pertains to you. Thanks for listening.